Who had the biggest fall from grace in history? Philippe Pétain was a national hero of France after World War I. He won the 9-month Battle of Verdun as a general and inspired hope and optimism at a time when it seemed like the war would never end. Fast forward to World War II and he became the head of state of Vichy France and was a puppet for the Nazis. He ran Vichy state in a semi-fascist manner and constantly sought to appease the Nazis to preserve Vichy's limited freedoms, including signing anti-Semitic ordinances and allowing deportation to concentration camps. At the end of the war, he was convicted of treason on all counts and originally sentenced to death before being reduced to life imprisonment by Charles de Gaulle on account of Pétain's advanced age and service during World War I. De Gaulle would later summarize Pétain's life as successively banal, then glorious, then deplorable, but never mediocre, and also the Marshal is a great man who died in 1925. The trouble is, he didn't know it. China had a similar person. Wang Jingwei was beloved for his role in the 1911 revolution but is now viewed terribly for siding with the Japanese in World War II. His fate was different though. He died in 1944 from a wound he got from an assassination attempt in 1939. His tomb was destroyed by the ROC Army and his burial place now has a note that calls him a traitor. Sounds like that attempt got upgraded to delayed success. Assassin 5 years later, why did I just get an assist? Jimmy Savile. Mega famous UK radio DJ and TV presenter. Did a ton of charity work. Was a knight of the realm. Post-death, he was revealed to be a massive pedophile, protected and ignored by those around him for decades. Edit, Savile not Savile. Massive pedophile doesn't do it justice. He was one of the most vicious and prolific pedophiles ever in the UK's history apparently. He also ducked dead bodies at hospitals if I remember correctly. Because they gave him the keys to the morgue. In what possible universe does a TV celebrity need unrestricted access to a morgue after hours? The hospital's admins he was donating money to gave him the keys. They also gave him access to kids in some cases. Ducking nightmare, all covered up. And mentally challenged adults as well. Really ducking creepy. I think his victims ranged from 5 to 85 or something like that. 5 to passed away for some time, apparently. Bill Cosby. Jimmy Savile, if you allow for posthumous falls from grace. Let me paint you a picture. Here is the ultimate working class boy made good. He worked as a coal miner during the Second World War. Once that was over, he tried a number of things. He was a professional wrestler for a while, lost every match, was a pioneer DJ, he essentially invented the job, and hosted a primetime TV show well into his 70s based on the premise of fulfilling outlandish dreams for kids. In his spare time, he worked as a volunteer porter at his local hospital and ran marathons, raising millions of pounds for charities, attracting a slew of honors. And while he may have been a bit eccentric, he was widely regarded as a national treasure. That is, until a couple of years after he died. Turns out Jimmy had a thing for young girls. Quite a thing, as it happens, he made Bill Cosby look like the angel Gabriel. We are talking one step below wandering around the TV studios where he worked with a 12-year-old latched onto his penis. Head got away with it precisely because of his public persona. He successfully persuaded almost all the girls he abused that nobody would ever believe them. Not just young kids. Mentally handicapped adults, the elderly, corpses. He was unbelievably vile. Benedict Arnold. Hero general of the American Revolution. One of George Washington's best assets. Felt slighted and overlooked by his contemporaries. Switched sides to the British, made no difference to the war effort. Died in disgrace in England. His name is now a synonym for traitor. Edit, since this is getting some attention, for anyone interested in learning more about the man, I highly recommend watching Benedict Arnold, A Question of Honor, a TV movie from 2003. Starring Aidan Quinn as Arnold and Kelsey Grammer as Washington. Arnold had 2 horses shot under him, including one at the Battle of Saratoga, where he was instrumental in securing victory at Bemis Heights. Arnold was going between the lines while being shot at, unharmed for most of the battle as he urged his men on until both he and his horse was hit with the final volley as the British were fleeing and the Americans were taking the important position. Arnold's leg was shot and broken by the horse. Following this, the British at Saratoga surrendered. This was a major inflection point of the American Revolution, showing Europeans that the Americans were serious and could beat the British on land, and soon foreign aid was given openly. Had Arnold been killed that day, all over the Northeast you would see statues to this man. Instead, there is but one monument to his injured leg in Saratoga that doesn't even say his name. Harvey Weinstein, he was Hollywood when he got outed for the posse is but this guy produced, just naming the top 3, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, 2, every Tarantino movie except Hollywood, and 3, Good Will Hunting and, subsequently, about every Damon or Affleck project from that time to his downfall. He's won more Oscars than any person could ever dream and has made more money off films than maybe anyone ever. That guy, oh man. I think he fell the furthest, the hardest and the fastest. Well deserved though. Well ducking deserved. Roses are red, violets are glorious, don't try to surprise, Oscar Pistorius. Jared Fogle. He started and ended his career trying to get into smaller pants. Started with a mild cholesterol problem, developed a child molesterol problem. Ian Watkins, former singer of the Welsh Amorach band Lost Prophets. Massively successful band in the scene. Turns out he dealt meth to fans to abuse them and then raped their babyest toddlers. Yes, you read right. I almost threw up when I read the indictment. Locked away for life, that one. The band has erased all music from all services as far as possible. It's tainted forever. I read the case file. Holy cow. And when asked why he did what he did, he said he did it for the lols. His password was I duck kids. And 2 of the infants' mothers sold their own babies out to him. There are text messages detailing the abuse they were planning to subject the infants to. And remember, one of his ex-GFs tried getting the police involved numerous times only to be told to duck off and no investigations being done, and then when the cops finally did something they tried to arrest her to under the fucked up aiding and abetting bullshit claim, which her lawyer fought because she had years worth of evidence against the cops showing she made an effort to report his sick ass. The whole case is one big police fuck up after another, like holy shit. I remember years before it all came out someone shared a link to some obscure Lost Prophets fan forum where the ex was posting trying to get people to listen to her warnings about him. Everyone on there was calling her a jealous crazy attention whore who was making shit up because he didn't want to duck her anymore. Was mad seeing it all hit the news and it all turning out to be true. Sounds like she was basically shouting from the rooftops. Also, they found out eventually if Irk is the police were at his house for drugs or something and ended up finding a whole bunch of CP and proof of his abuse. OJ has to be up there. What would the Terminator franchise be like if James Cameron didn't think he was too nice to play a killer? It'd be also curious what Schwarzenegger's career would look like without his most iconic role. By the time I was a child, Bill Cosby was so universally recognized as an icon of wholesome comedy that one of the most popular kids' shows of my youth was literally just a cartoon about his childhood. Now the legacy of that little cartoon show is tainted by the very subject of the show itself. That's a fall from grace. From being trusted to be a part of your kid's formative years, to becoming one of the most vile and disliked men of all time. I don't know how I didn't realize that Little Bill was by Cosby until right now. Guess I just never paid enough attention. That's quite a stain on my childhood now. I thought you guys were referring to Fat Albert. Duck, I'm old. He was never the biggest star, but Mark Selling's fall from grace was massive. Went from the star of a primetime show to charged with child porn and dead in a matter of months. On that note, Allison Mack. Went from the actress of the breakout character on a long-running popular superhero show to a cult leader who trafficked women for sex and forced labor, blackmailed them, branded them, and tortured them. There's also Grace Park, one of the stars of Battlestar Galactica and Hawaii Five-0 who was part of that cult too. I think she left though. One of her co-stars was and is still a big part of it though and actually married Mac. Nikki Klein, she was Callie on BSG. Robespierre. His actual death was brutal. For those who don't know, he tried to kill himself, but was stopped and ended up only blowing his own jaw off. He then was kept alive all night with a massive facial injury until he was beheaded in the morning. Just before he was beheaded, the executioner ripped the bandages off his face, and only the guillotine blade silenced his screams. One of the major events that stands out during the French Revolution for me. Didn't he also face the blade of the guillotine instead of facing the basket? I remember something about the guillotine having people face the basket so they won't have to die a terrifying way. It is still terrifying though. And that they had Robespierre face the guillotine blade so that his death would be more terrifying. Yeah, they did that to him. I think he was the only person out of all 16,594 people who died from the guillotine to be executed like that. The people who killed him really hated him. I'm surprised there's such a specific number. Guess I got some Googling to do. Every single one of them was done in public. It was considered a grand old spectacle that it'd be great to take your kids to for a jaunty afternoon affair. Same for hangings. Oh sure, I get that. But damn, that's a specific number. Impressive record keeping no matter what, especially in the chaos of a revolution. And don't forget, those records were still kept current up until after Star Wars premiered. The last execution by guillotine in France was September 10, 1977. The last execution overall in France, as we banned the death penalty at that time.